Well, I think we're ready to rock and roll if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are, yeah.
So first of all, how many of you were able to watch the video of Steven's performance in Detroit for the first anti-Trump tour date? Did you guys see it? Yeah? Did you guys enjoy it? Well, we're going to do the same format here tonight. We might have time for some people who haven't signed up to debate to take the stage and to debate a topic with Steven. But we are going to start with those who bought a debate ticket online. We should have 9 debaters in the house, but we'll see who showed up and who didn't. But yeah. Welcome, everyone. I like I was just mentioning, I am Canadian, and I do feel like this is kind of me trying to invade the United States to some degree right now and fight Trumpism. And that's what this tour is all about. And I think the greatest warrior I can bring onto the team to be in the front lines fighting is Steven Bonnell, Destiny, right? Yeah. So I just want to get right into the debates here. So I want to bring up first someone who said their reason for voting for Trump was that Trump was one of the few people that has genuinely been able to change and make an impact in the American government. For example, the vaccines for COVID. He knows how to respect his base. Please welcome to the stage, Tristan Zapp. Tristan, you're up. Okay, buddy.
Hey, what's up?
Make sure you talk nice and close to the mic.
Yeah, it's all properly. We good? Okay, because I kind of talk a little bit on the louder side.
Yeah, no, you could be as loud as better.
All right, awesome. So, hello, I'm not sure if you prefer to be called Destiny or Steven. Steven's fine here, yeah. Okay, Steven, okay. So general gist is I felt like across the board when it came to Donald Trump's election as a whole, a lot of the stuff when it came to his policies and respecting his base, I thought were perfectly in line with what I wanted. And the main thing I kind of wanted to fixate on, which I think you'd appreciate, is one, the vaccine response, right? Where a lot of people look at that as an overreach of government and an overreach of the fact that the FDA just sped run through the testing. I honestly thought it was a really good result, and to show the fact that I think that there can be a benefit to going about things in a very undemocratic way. Right? Because we look at the amount of lives that the vaccine saved, and someone that we see as an inherently like authoritarian figure, honestly wound up saving a lot of lives, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I wound up re-electing him and re-voting for him, because he strikes me as someone that is capable of not being afraid to bend the rules of government in order to pass through policies that actually can and do help people.
So I think that in that argument, there is a very buried nugget of truth where, people were critical. Abe Lincoln, suspending habeas corpus for a little bit during the Civil War and everything. And you've got Trump, who I don't know if I would say Operation Warp Speed is an undemocratic way necessarily to approach trying to speed to the vaccine thing. The only reason I say it is because democracy can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that the executive is acting, therefore it's not democratic, right? I don't know if he necessarily broke any laws or any rules. But I would say that the biggest issue when it comes to looking at Donald Trump breaking rules is his lack of a coherent plan or his lack of vision for what he's trying to do. Sometimes ends up, shooting himself in the foot as opposed to actually being able to take advantage of the thing that he's done. So, for instance, I kind of say that as a backhanded compliment when people say, well, what was good about Trump? And I'll say, oh, well, Operation Warp Speed. And the reason why it's a backhanded compliment is because Trump doesn't take credit for Operation Warp Speed anymore because he poisoned his entire audience against the vaccine such that when you say it saved lives, it did. It saved Democratic lives because, in general, Democrats are more likely to get vaccinated than Republicans were.
Yeah. So you made a lot of solid points there, and in a roundabout way, I think some of the things you bring up with the fact that he often shoots himself in the foot is a very Trump thing to do. And I've watched it time and time again throughout his administration. And it's an unfortunate thing, but plenty of presidential administrations have shot themselves in the foot time and time again. And they've walked back on promises that they've made. The Obama administration famously never pulled out troops from Afghanistan, right? It took Donald Trump to that. And you can go bit by bit. I'm not trying to like both sides it, but I feel like there's this like hyper criticism. Of course, he's the president, but there's this like hyper criticism on like, oh, Trump messed up. Trump shot himself in the foot. Well, at the same time, and I do strongly believe this, I think he's one of the most democratic presidents we've had, solely off of the fact that when he got elected, most of the positions and stuff that he backed his base on, he tried to do, right?
Sure, but I think one issue I have is when people talk about failures of Trump, we switch to a passive voice, or we speak of things as though they never could have been otherwise. Like you just said, some things have happened under Trump that were unfortunate, or the fact that his audience was poisoned against vaccines was unfortunate. It wasn't unfortunate. That was Trump's fault. Like it wasn't that these things just happened to happen under Trump. It was his poor leadership that directly caused these things to happen. And a lot of the talk around COVID and around vaccines, that was just his fault. That was bad leadership.
I'm not sure if I would agree with that, mainly because the fact that, if I remember correctly, the first thing that came out when there was talk about speedrunning the FDA's administration processes and everything was the fact that Donald Trump's administration and the Democrats in response were saying that, well, we shouldn't take a Trump vaccine, right? I'm trying to remember the specific elected representatives. And
well,
yes,
so I think the specific statements where you could argue that they weren't the most responsible statements, something like, I wouldn't trust what Trump says, I would have to see what the FDA says or something, right? Which were statements that were said, but Democrats ended up taking it and Republicans didn't.
But this is the thing, right? So if the Democratic administration can make claims or statements on certain positions on the vaccine, and then when they actually wind up, then the public hears it and the Democratic administration's public doesn't actually follow through on what their representatives say, then I don't know how much you can actually fault Trump for his own supporters letting themselves die and not taking the vaccine.
Well, I think the issue is that it's a false equivalence to say that Democrats signaled against the vaccine as hard as Trump and the Republicans signaled against everything COVID related. Like, there were a couple of statements that Democrat lawmakers probably shouldn't have made with regards to the vaccine.
But
they were bordering on irresponsible, maybe. But like Trump, when COVID first came here, right? People don't like Fauci because they said one of many things. Now they say he lied about masks early on. Donald Trump lied about how much COVID was here for like over a week. He said there's just probably one case. There's maybe 10 cases. There's maybe 100 cases when there were tens of thousands of infected people in New York City. Like,
well, I mean, I feel like there's been an issue here because you're kind of conflating the response that Trump had with the like distribution of the vaccine and everything and what his fellow Republicans said about the vaccine versus the fact that like there's only so much you can do when your own base kind of runs with different things. Trump was never in opposition to the vaccine. He made it. He even, proudly proclaimed at many different, events he went to that he proudly got the jab and stuff. So while Trump isn't like inherently against the vaccine, he did critique elements of the administration and the CDC, like Fauci, like other representatives. So while there is like gridlock there, I don't think just because there's gridlock that all of a sudden magically your base just kind of caters or something. I don't think like it's right.
You don't think Donald Trump constantly undermining and attacking the government is what led to Republicans not trusting the government?
No, I actually don't think that's the case because while Donald Trump has attacked the government, he's attacked it like specific sectors. Like
it's like every sector that doesn't agree with him, basically, right? Like he attacked the Federal Reserve when they wouldn't lower interest rates for him. He attacked Fauci and everything. And
but plenty of presidents complain about the administration not working the way they want to. That's the whole point. We've had this as a thing all the way back from like Theodore Roosevelt, right, with the bully pulpit. This is something that presidential
I don't think the bully pulpit is supposed to be, I believe, to other lawmakers in contested districts, not to your own cabinet. Right? You can always fire and rehire.
It definitely has been to your own cabinet, though. You can definitely use it. It's a tool that the president has as being the voice of the people that elected him to apply pressure to the constituents around him and the people and the lawmakers. So I feel like trying to like hinge a point on like, well, like, the whole Republican Party went like tits up about the vaccine. Like, yeah, that did happen. And I'm not in agreement with it, to be honest with you. I got both jabs and, I'm like fully vaccinated. My friends look at me like I'm crazy. They think I'm going to be sterilized or something. But despite that, like I still went through the process of getting the vaccine. Like I feel like there's this weird conflation here where it's like, Donald Trump never took out any outright statements against the vaccine, and then you saying that because of the fact that he critiqued the government, that all of a sudden that all Republicans threw out the baby with the bathwater. I just don't think that's
clear,
like fundamentally
true. He didn't just
true.
Critique the government. He's made several claims that huge swaths of the government were working in a malicious manner to undermine him and his administration for the entirety of his government and the next government, and sometimes I guess in his current government, depending on who he's talking about.
When the economy's struggling, right? And of course, I'm not saying I'm pro or against the lockdowns that happen, but when the economy is like struggling and you see a political moment to hinder your economy even more and make the current administration look even bad by further locking down, right? By further enforcing job mandates, by further enforcing like, it does kind of strike me in some way that while yes, you can say that the Democrats are trying to adjust and fix, and do a proper response to Trump's administration, at the end of the day, they still hurt the economy very heavily, and they hurt a lot of people by doing those lockdowns. And
when we say, didn't COVID hurt the economy? I mean, if the lockdowns and everything are a response to a worldwide pandemic, I mean, is it fair to blame the people who locked down on that?
I mean, there are plenty of countries that decided not to. Like I was saying, the lockdown question as a whole is a very difficult thing. I think most people would agree with that here.
Sure. Also, I would say most countries did do versions of lockdowns, right?
Yeah, to some degree in differing levels. I won't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is
because your last statement made it sound like Democrats did lockdowns intentionally just to hurt the economy with the hopes that it would damage Trump.
Yeah, and it did feel like that to some extent. I feel like
the issue I have is that when there's evidence of Trump lying or scheming or doing things, it seems like we always say well, we can't read Trump's mind, but there's no evidence ever. Oh. There's no evidence of Democrats intentionally shutting down states in order to intentionally damage their economy, which also doesn't make sense because places like New Zealand and Australia hardcore shut down their stuff. Were they just trying to destroy their whole economies intentionally, or did Democrats just happen to do the exact same actions in their states that other countries were doing?
I feel like you highlight a really important point about intentionality, and I think it's a little weird that you went about it with the notion that a lot of people assume you can't read Trump's mind, but you're assuming that I can't try to participate in the understanding of what Democratic lawmakers are thinking at the time. And from a simple political perspective, it's beneficial for your side to exploit a catastrophe that's happening under the administration you don't like, right? Well, I'm not saying that Democrats crippled and horrifyingly destroyed the economy. At the end of the day, you can't acknowledge that lockdowns had a negative impact on the economy, and they did cater to what Democrats wanted, which is a negative demonstration of Trump's effect on the American economy, right?
No.
So, why not?
Well, they could have just locked down because they thought that was the best path forward because it kept their people safer, and that's what people around the world were doing, right?
Right, which I agree with. But what I'm saying is you're stripping my right to be able to interpret the minds of Democrats when I never said I was stripping the right of being able to interpret the minds of Donald Trump. For example, he just bombed Iran the other day, right?
Well, but I don't have to guess Donald Trump's mind state. Thank God. I can just look at his social media and I know what he's thinking at literally all points in time. I guess my issue is that if I were to say Donald Trump is doing the tariffs just to destroy the world economy, would you say that's a fair read?
I mean, to some degree, yeah, that is. Because of the fact that
shouldn't we rely on reporting on what people are saying around the person, what the person themselves is saying? There's no evidence that Democrats, for instance, other countries that shut down, were they shutting down just because they wanted to destroy their own economies?
No. But
so
I'm
if
saying
Democrats are shutting down states and other countries are shutting down, wouldn't it be more reasonable to assume that they were probably doing it out of fear of the pandemic rather than trying to intentionally tank the economy under Trump?
So what I feel what I'm trying to get across here is I'm not trying to intentionally say that this was their main goal. They're hell yeah, lockdowns are going to screw up the entire American economy. This is awesome. What I'm saying though is that that it just kind of happened to line up with the fact that they wanted to make the administration look bad. And I feel like lockdowns did help do that because when Trump's main position and the main thing he's campaigning on is how strong and how well the economy is, and then Democrats lock down the economy, it's going to make him look worse. And I feel like you can't ignore that. Listen, sometimes politics can line up with intentions, right? So just because a negative thing is happening.
That's a way different statement to say that it happened to be politically advantageous versus they wanted that to be the case, right?
Okay, so I guess I misused my words a little bit here. So wanted, right? So I did. When I said wanted, I mean that they were encouraged to do the lockdowns because of the fact that would be politically disadvantageous to the current administration.
I still feel like, while it might be a benefit, when I lived in Nebraska, we had snow days sometimes. Nobody would have accused me of
here too.
Causing the snow to fall because I wanted a snow day, and it would actually benefit me a lot, right? There's a whole reason, there's a whole set of explanations for why it's snowing. I would probably go with all of those. And I see it snows in other states where there aren't even kids that go to school, right? So it probably snows because of the weather. If I look at why economies are being locked down, Canada locked down a ton. They had protests over it. New Zealand, Australia were huge lockdown economies. All of Europe did lockdowns. Even all of the Republican states, to some extent, everybody did some kind of lockdown. It feels like if we think the Democrats are snowflakes and babies about diseases and stuff more than Republicans, which I think most Republicans would say that anyway, it seems like it would logically follow that they would also lock down the economy a bit more, not just to hurt Trump, but because they feel like that was the right thing to do. And then again, on the flip side, like to draw another example. So for instance, like when we had an immigration bill that could have passed in the last year of Biden's term, Donald Trump explicitly came out and he explicitly said, I don't want that bill to pass because I need to keep the border open because this is an election issue for me. Yeah, but like people will say like, well, that doesn't count. But like that is a clear line of thought.
So I want to. Okay, cool. That's right. I wouldn't say. I've heard you bring up this point many times about the immigration bill, but I feel like something that you fail to kind of talk about with it is the fact that when it comes to like an immigration bill like that, you're giving a one-up to the other side, right? So if there's issues of immigration, right, and we pass a bill that only is like a half measure, right? While it would have addressed some of the issues of immigration, it wouldn't have addressed Trump's main voter base with immigration. You can't really cater to that because let's say Biden and the bipartisan Republicans agreed to pass the immigration reform bill. Well, what winds up happening then is Biden runs on that bill. He says, look, we fixed immigration, right? And you're basically catering to the other side. But like you have to acknowledge that that's like a huge political tool.
But like, isn't that kind of the goal of governing? Don't we want to like do things that are good for the country and make people happy and healthy? And
yeah, but there's a difficulty because you're giving your opposition ammunition to win the election. So something I've heard you time and time again say is the fact that Donald Trump, the Republicans are purposely leaving open the border so that they can run on that issue.
To be clear, Trump said that, yeah.
Yeah, to which I say, of course they are. It's politics. This is what politics is. People purposely leave issues to be able to win votes and win elections. Democrats do it with gun control. There's like on and on, but...
Sure, I feel like that's a race to the bottom then. Like it seems like... at that point, you're just like every side is going to be endlessly sabotaging the other side, and then the country's just going to explode. And there's going to be nukes coming, and the people are going to be like, "Well, if we survive the nukes, the midterms are going to be really good for us." Like in a year or two. I don't know. It just seems like not a great approach to things. But you want to? Oh yeah, you can have the last word. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think a really important thing to highlight is my main point there about the mindset of Trump and the way he does things. It wasn't really that I was arguing everyone should be racing to the bottom and completely ignoring whatever whatever benefits America just to aid their side. But when you're in a re-election season, I think it's really important to not mischaracterize the way people run in politics. And I feel like when you heavily say things like, Donald Trump does this and that, and like he's purposely not trying to pass the bill, he doesn't really care about immigration, doesn't really care about these issues. It's tough to argue that when we're in campaign season and people need votes to win. And that's a hard-button issue. And I feel like it's not quite fair that you take that route. But
okay, can I ask one quick question? Yes or no? Yeah. Will you not feel great about the statement? I don't say you're wrong or whatever, but like, will you feel bad about the border thing in the bill if Donald Trump goes all 4 years and we don't get a single piece of legislation on the border? Or do you think it was worth it still?
Well, see, the issue of the border is I'm a neocon Republican.
Okay.
So I strongly believe that immigration isn't actually the worst thing in the world. But I'm also very pro-war on a lot of issues and stuff. So like the bombing Iran, supported. So like it's tough for me to address the immigration thing because I know a lot of his base cares very heavily about that issue, but I'm kind of a bit more on the fence. I'm just mainly arguing on the notion that I think it's rough to argue that, Republicans are doing this. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right, just curious. All right, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah.
We're only 30 minutes in and we already activated the first trap, so okay. All right.
I'm going to use my phone for notes.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. All right. So recently, Trump had a meeting with the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa. He brought up the issues being faced by white people in South Africa. You reviewed this meeting. You were very critical of it. While I will acknowledge that Trump did say things during the meeting that were untrue, and that white genocide is hyperbolic and untrue, it was still a good thing that Trump brought up the topic of the struggles of white people in South Africa wanting to seek refuge in America because they do have valid concerns. So I have 3 or 4 main arguments. The first one has to do with a party called the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Sure. So just as a quick thing, the big issue I'm going to have with this isn't going to come down to the particular arguments relating to what white people in South Africa might face. I think my big criticism for that meeting, and the thing that I feel like is going to undermine the arguments you have, is that if it was the fact that white people in South Africa were facing a threat related to racial stuff, related to maybe white genocide is hyperbolic, but whatever, I would argue that the way that Donald Trump approached that meeting just guarantees that this issue will never be taken seriously, and that whatever opportunity he had to take it a little bit seriously was completely ejected when he sat there like he was looking at brain rot memes for 20 minutes with the South African president like awkwardly looking back and forth between them.
Okay, I don't agree. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that the way Trump does things is a lot of times is awkward and goofy, and people really don't like it.
Wait, hold on. Let me just, I wouldn't say awkward and goofy.
Oh, sure,
That's how I would describe like hiring an incompetent clown for a 4-year-old's birthday party. I would say it's unprofessional. It's lacking leadership. I would say it's detrimental to U.S. domestic and foreign interest.
Okay.
And I would say it's deeply embarrassing for how we're viewed around the world. It's not just a joke. It's like it's really bad, I think. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, for this specific meeting, there were things that he said were untrue, but it was a good thing. They have genuine concerns, and it was a good thing that he brought attention to it in the way that he did, because it got a lot of attention and notice, and it's starting a conversation about it. And while he said some things were untrue, some of the things were true in that, like you talked about the white crosses. Those weren't grave sites, but they were a protest against farm murders, which is a real problem there. And he did show, like, my first main point is the video he showed of the people, it's the economic freedom fighters. It's a political party that they routinely chant, kill the Boer, which is white South Africans, kill the farmer. They've done this for years, and they've done it as recently as last month. They make up about 10% of the voting bloc. And like, if there was an American party that routinely chanted kill race, whatever, we wouldn't be okay with that and just, brush it aside as a non-issue.
So, I mean, I won't make any parallels to MAGA right now, because that would be mean. But I guess the issue, I mean, we invoked the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans under the guise that we're at war with a country because of a gang that exists there. That's kind of crazy, I think, right?
Deportation is not the same as chanting for the murder of people.
That's true. I would argue deporting somebody to like an actual like hostile prison is worse than just a chant. Like we did do that. Like we started to deport people to El Salvador. I think that's really bad, right?
Okay.
Like, but so this is, again, I'm going to reiterate this point. What you just brought up, I don't know anything about that. I might have, though, if Trump would have used that meeting as an opportunity to actually bring that up and actually address it rather than showing what seemed to be like an actual Twitter highlights compilation.
It's a real video. The video he showed is a real video of a real political, but they're the 4th largest political party in South Africa.
Yeah, I understand, but it's the president of the United States.
And he showed videos of farm murders protesting a real issue.
Yes, but
you can take issue with, there was one photo he showed that was from the Congo, and they weren't technically grave sites, and the guy...
Wouldn't it be better to have like an actual professional conversation about that?
You can always say, how could we have improved the situation? But the point is, he brought attention to the issue, and it's a real issue. Like, yes, I'm talking about it now with you, and it's brought up the national conversation.
Yeah,
there's more videos on YouTube about it.
People have been talking about this issue for like a decade for South Africa, right?
Yeah, it's been an issue, but I think people are talking about it more now since the meeting.
Okay, I would be surprised if anything of substance came out with regards to South Africa. It felt to me, I don't know your feeling on it, but it felt to me like it was a big pet project for Elon, and I think he kind of pushed it onto Trump. I don't know if Trump himself cares about it that much. I would be shocked.
I'm sure Elon feels personally connected because he's from South Africa.
Yeah, I'm sure Elon does. I'm willing to bet that Trump thinks that South Africa just means like the southern part of Africa. He doesn't even know that's a country. That'd be my guess. But I don't see. Do you realistically think in the next few years, do you think the United States is going to make any headway there in terms of pressuring South Africa or, using any kind of soft power or whatever to get them to alleviate whatever issue this is? Or do you think Trump will talk about it a single time for the rest of the 3 years he's in office?
I don't know what he's going to do, but
isn't that disappointing? Like,
no,
you don't even know?
I'm making a simple argument.
Sure.
My simple argument is that it was good that he brought it up during the meeting. You can hypothesize about what he's going to do in the future, what he will or will not do. I'm saying it was a good thing that he brought attention to the issue during this meeting. I have a bunch of reasons to say why. I'm dying to say some of them, but you just keep saying, I don't like the way he did the meeting. And I acknowledge your issues with the way he did the meeting, but I'm just saying there's real issues here.
I'm sure there are real issues,
talking about it.
But like we can relate this to Iran. I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. I actually fully support any strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. But having Donald Trump do it, who doesn't have like a cohesive vision or plan for the Middle East, and then having him explain it worries me that there will be like a chilling effect on that type of conversation, or that any military action that we do in the Middle East is going to be viewed in such a negative lens because of the way that he's approaching it, because of the way he's spoken about it. Like, it sucks, but optics, when you're the leader of a country and people listen to the words you say, I think are really important. And the idea of kind of squandering the opportunity to bring up a really important issue, like, again, you're not even sure if the president would even bring this up again. And I think that's deeply troubling if it's an issue that we care about, you know?
Mm-hmm. I feel like we're having two different conversations, okay? I'm trying to make one argument, and then you're saying, well, these other things that aren't. Like, do you acknowledge that white people face an issue in South Africa and they may have a legitimate claim to refugee status in America? Or do you still refer to it as like a neo-Nazi conspiracy theory?
Well, I think that I was close friends with some people who believe that were neo-Nazis. I don't know to the extent that there is legitimately white like hunting issue with farmers in South Africa that's based around like repatriation of land that black people feel was stolen from them. That might be a real issue. It might not be. I'm kind of agnostic on it. I lean a little bit on that. I feel like it's a little bit exaggerated by the neo-Nazi people, but I doubt it's a totally fictitious issue. But all I'm saying is, however real that issue is, we're never going to talk about it again in the U.S. because Trump doesn't know anything about it, and the little
How
opportunity.
How do you know that? You're just saying, "Oh, we're never going to talk about it again. Nothing's ever going to be done." Like, this is.
I'm going by what
you start with a conversation. You start with bringing it up, and then we'll see what happens. But you can't just dismiss the topic and say, "Oh, well, Trump's not going to bring it up again, so we don't need to talk about it now." Or it's the. Well,
I mean, we can talk about it, but if it was an issue that I cared about, I would kill myself if Donald Trump was the first one to bring it up in that manner on stage. I'd be like, fuck, like, it feels like nobody's going to have any investment in this issue now. And you had like the leader of South Africa here to talk about it, and now you have completely squandered it, right? Like, I guess I wouldn't compare it maybe to the Zelensky talk, but like, that's another conversation where it's like, it's such a bombed convo that regardless of how you felt about it, any opportunity it feels to have any awareness brought on that issue is just completely squandered because of the way that Trump conducts himself. I understand that your conversation, and I'm not trying to deprive you of the notes that you took. I
got a lot of notes. I'm dying to say some of them.
If you want to go through a couple, I'm uncomfortable because I can't push back again to say any of it. But if you want to go through a couple, you can. But I think my primary argument is going to be
let me hit some notes here.
Yeah, go ahead, hit a few. Go for it.
Farm murder. So the EFF, I think that's a major issue.
Okay.
Economic freedom fighters. You got the farm attacks and farm murders. The government says that they're mostly robbery oriented and that it's not racially motivated, but I think we have reasons to doubt that. Did you watch Lauren's documentary on it?
Yep.
Okay. So when it came to the Blood Sisters and them describing how, like, a lot of the murders, it's not just like a simple, someone attacking a farmer just to get his property. They're like torturing them to death. Like, she gave an example where they took a 12-year-old boy and drowned him in boiling water. And there's a lot of examples of people being tortured in these attacks, which kind of imply more of a racial hatred motivation rather than just a simple robbery. Did you watch this? Did you have an opinion on that? Or,
I mean, assuming that it's done for racial hatred and assuming like these are ongoing, how many? My understanding is the number of people who've been killed are pretty low when it comes to like farmers for the racial targeting and everything, right? Over the past
from what I know, I think it's an average of 500 attacks and 60 murders a year. So
okay, that's a little higher than what I heard, but that might be closer to accurate.
I could be wrong. That's the number I saw today.
Again, I'm not super well read into this issue. I guess I just I don't understand. Like, these are all things that could have been brought up by Trump or somebody.
Okay, could have. You could have done all kinds of things. Okay.
So we're not here to debate South Africa and the genocide. We're here to talk about the guy on the fucking poster, okay?
The video was legitimate.
Okay.
In a sense. It was. So, I mean, they also said that the attacks are higher than what the government is saying. But they also said they couldn't go into too much detail because they work closely with the government, which made me think they're telling the truth because I'm like, okay, well, what motive would they have to lie about it? But if they're saying, hey, they work with the government, so we kind of have to be careful about what we say or we'll get in trouble, to me that shows they don't have a motive to lie. They would actually have a motive to keep quiet about it. So, and just the way they said it made it seem like they were telling the truth to me, that the number of attacks is actually even higher than what the government's reporting.
We'll give you one more point off your list. Find a good one, yeah?
I have so many.
I'm sure.
The example of what happened in Zimbabwe, that was really bad. They took land, oftentimes violently, from white farmers, and it led to economic collapse, starvation, hyperinflation, really bad things. We don't want to repeat of that in the South Africa. And they're neighboring countries. And then basically the current trajectory of South Africa is not good. They had a good period from 94 when they got rid of apartheid and Mandela was elected. They had a good period of consistent economic growth every year, including a growing black middle class from like 94 to 2008. But then around 2008, everything changed because they didn't invest in their power grid, and President Zuma got elected, and he was really corrupt, and the government's been basically really corrupt since then. And so the government has a crumbling infrastructure, stagnating economy, high unemployment, high crime. And this is, I don't want to just focus on the white people. This is even worse for the black people.
Sure. Okay.
So it's worse for everyone.
So I guess my only question, and I'll give you the last word on this. My only question is if there's an issue that you feel passionately about, if there's an issue that you're read into, and it's an issue that you'd like to see improve, I don't understand how you couldn't be so irritated watching Trump just completely waste an entire potential meeting where he has the world.
He brought up the issue, not in the perfect way, but he brought it up. I could be wrong, I never saw Biden bring it up during his presidency. At least he brought it up. Maybe he didn't do it perfectly, but at least he brought it up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you, Destiny.
Hey, nice to meet you, dude. Nice to meet you, dude.
Hello. Testing. Does this sound okay? All right, let me get comfortable. So when I decided to do this debate a week ago, I was gonna take how Trump actually was anti-war, how he didn't want. Yeah, and you all know what happened last night. So my question, you can't defend it. And another thing too, I'm an amateur rookie content creator. Last week, I decided to get into the political sphere. And before this debate, I cracked a Red Bull, stayed up all night, and studied the Middle East and studied the Trump's administration position in it. And I realized you cannot even defend what Trump is doing in the Middle East.
What makes you feel any better, the experience that you had trying to put that argument together is how we all felt watching Biden in his last debate, so...
Well, for all the other debaters in here, all the people who were pro-Trump, MAGA got scammed. We genuinely got scammed. He ran off an anti-war campaign, and that's not what happened at all. My question for you, Destiny, is: are you anti-war?
No.
You're not anti-war in the Middle East?
No. I feel like it's weird to ask somebody in a country that was born of revolution to say we're anti-war or not, right? I think the question always has to be, what is the war? Is it justified or not? And then on what terms do we fight it, right?
That's true, but would you ever go to war in the Middle East? Yourself?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I got really big bone spurs. Isn't that what Donald Trump said?
I think if someone were never to go to fight themselves, they are inherently anti-war. I think you are anti-war as well. I think you're a conscientious guy, and I don't think you want people to die, correct?
Yeah. The problem when people say, they're anti-war, and you say, I don't want people to die, is the unfortunate reality is sometimes you don't have a choice, right? If there's one side that wants to engage in certain behavior that's going to lead to civilian death, it doesn't make much sense to say, well, I don't want to go to war with that person because people will die if I go to war, right? At some point, a war is going to be forced upon you. It's just whether or not you want it on your terms, right?
Do you think the Democratic Party inherently has an act of letting people die overseas? Not Americans, but other sides where they could get involved and prevent certain deaths and whatnot?
Well, I mean, the fundamental question is, why do we get involved in foreign conflict? And the goal is, generally, it has to align with U.S. interests, right? Or regions that we're interested in, or interests of U.S. allies. It's not just to stop death. Otherwise, we'd be way more involved in other regions, right?
Okay, well, under the Biden administration, 48,000 Palestinians died. I don't think that's in the United States' interest, nor do I think it's not in our interest. But that being said, I think it's a genocide, and I think it's wrong.
You don't think it's wrong that
I think it's wrong.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, that's a perspective that you're allowed to have. I don't want to argue against for it.
So my question, you said you don't want war.
I never said I don't want war. I mean, war is a thing that countries engage in sometimes. Unfortunately, it has to be a just use of war, right? No one's opposed to violence. No one would say we should get rid of, well, some people might say we should get rid of all of the police, but we have to have some form of violence in society between countries to enforce or to defend yourself, right?
Do you think there should be a regime change in Iran?
Do I think there should be? I don't know what would come afterwards. And whether or not there should or shouldn't be is a fundamentally different question than like, should we force it or should Israel force it? I don't know. It's a big country. There's a lot of people. I don't know what the stability of that would look like afterwards. I do know that regardless of what lays beyond, I guess, the current strikes, though, do you want Iran to possess nuclear weapons?
I think if Israel has nuclear weapons, I think Iran should too. I don't think.
So do you think that the overall temperature of the Middle East would be higher or lower? Do you think it would be more stable or less stable if Iran had nuclear weapons?
It'd be less stable. But that being said, if you look at the history, again, I'm no political expert, but I study the history of Israel. They have initiated every single war since their history. And every single conflict that resulted of them initiating war was brought upon them. You disagree?
Yeah, but I don't know how we do the whole history of Israel-Palestine, or
it's not even just Palestine. It's I
mean, an easy one would be in 73. That was a surprise war launched by the Arab states, right? The Yom Kippur War in 73. There's no way you could say Israel started that one at the least, right?
Yeah, but they also initiated conflict with Egypt and Libya.
Well, they'd been in conflict for decades since the foundation of the country.
So if you go all the way back to Israel's founding in 1948, who do you think really initiated the conflicts which created the domino effect that we are like where we are today?
I don't know, God, when he created the planets and the universe.
Do you believe in God though?
No.
Okay.
So I guess the Big Bang. I don't know. I mean, even the framing of that question is very loaded. Go back to the beginning of Israel in 48. Well, why not to the Kingdom of Israel?
Okay.
Well,
do you support Israel and do you support the foreign aid in which we give to them?
I'd say largely, yeah.
But you don't want a conflict with Iran? Because you and Donald Trump have a lot in common if you really think about it.
You gotta, when you say you don't want conflict with Iran, like, no, but I mean, if you see a guy like walking to your house, and he's got like a bomb on him, and you shoot the guy in the driveway, do you say like, well, did you want conflict with the guy? He's like, no, but he was going to blow my shit up. So
okay.
It's like these questions, I feel like they don't get to the root of the issue. That's why I asked earlier, would Iran with a nuclear weapon, would that be more stability for the region or less? And it seemed like you said it was less. So why would we want a scenario that is inherently less stable, especially when nuclear weapons are involved?
Okay, you're right. We can go back to Israel's founding. We can go back 4,000 years to Babylon and Israel. But let's just rewind the clock a week ago. Let's rewind the clock a week ago. Israel bombed Iran first.
I mean,
is that just all right, everyone, there's a fire somewhere. We all need to leave.
Okay, stream snipers. Okay, the conflict is not as simple as like who hit who first. I think that you have to look at more. I think you have to be a little bit more comprehensive when you look at the region. So, for instance, do you agree that Hezbollah has been at war with Israel, and the Houthis have been like shooting bombs at Israel, and that Hamas has been at war with Israel, and all of these proxies are funded by and supported by Iran, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So if Iran has been funding these things, and then let's say, I'm simplifying this up, but let's say Iran has been funding proxies against Israel, and then Israel shoots a bomb at Iran, is it fair to say, even if it might be strictly true that Israel attacked Iran first, does that really fully encompass everything that's happened?
Again, I'm very new at politics. I cracked a Red Bull and just study this stuff, stayed up all night studying it. From what I've read, though, is that you have to look at the entire Middle East as a whole. Iran is one of the only superpowers of the Middle East. If they fall, do you think Israel would continue expanding and try to conquer more land? Or do you think that they'll just
what would Israel
stop
conquer?
exactly where they are and they won't go any further?
I think they'll stop where they are. Like, what else would they expand to?
They would expand throughout the whole Middle East.
Where would the next place they would go be?
So from your worldview, you think Israel is only taking a complete defensive position, no offense position whatsoever in the Middle East?
Offense position is a lot different than we'll conquer territory. I don't think Israel is looking to expand anymore.
But they have expanded. You just said anymore, so they have expanded before. Why would they expand before if they're only taking defensive position.
They expanded before because they got attacked by every country surrounding them, and they took territory in order to secure up their defensive posture, right?
One component in this equation is Israel's population has been increasing since its founding, correct?
Sure.
So that being said, they do have to expand, or else they will just...
There's plenty of space in Israel right now for the people that live there. It's not like they're running out of space.
So you think 100 years from now, they will never expand, they will have no interest in creating more territory, even though they have taken more territory in the past?
Well, what did they take territory for? What was the impetus for that?
To just expand. They
were in war with other countries that were fighting with them. And in exchange for peace, they gave some of that land back, right? Israel had conquered the whole Sinai Peninsula. They gave it back to Egypt in exchange for a peace treaty.
All right, let's talk about the peace treaty. You're talking about the Camp David Accords, correct?
I think so, yeah, in 78.
Okay, why do you think they took that peace treaty?
Because Egypt agreed not to attack them anymore.
That's it? That's the only reason why you think?
What else are we... I mean, they want peace, but they don't want to be at war with every single surrounding country.
For everyone who doesn't know here, the Camp David Accords, one of the biggest things about it is that Israel, post the Camp David Accords, they received the largest amount of funding and foreign aid from the U.S., post the Camp David Accords. The second one, you want to take a guess of which country took the second largest amount?
Egypt?
It was Egypt. Yeah, exactly.
That's good, isn't it? They were two countries that were fighting a lot, and now they don't fight anymore, and they haven't for 50 years. Isn't that a good thing?
So you think just paying off opponents of the United States, that's what prevents war? No.
I mean, if they stop fighting, isn't that a good thing? Well, I mean, what is the...
It's not a good thing because we're talking about a people who... So I know a lot of people in here, they don't believe in the Bible, they don't believe in Jesus, they're not biblical. But we're talking about a conflict where these people inherently do. It's in their DNA. They teach their kids about it. They teach their grandkids about it.
The Bible and Jesus.
So, let me just pay them off with money, and then they'll stop fighting. How long are we supposed to support foreign wars, foreign territories, and how much money do we have to give them? The truth is, you can't give them ever enough money. That's the truth. It will always keep going on. So we have the choice in the United States either to pull out of the Middle East, completely cut ties with Israel, or continue fighting endless wars to the end of time. If you're a Trump supporter and you're upset at the fact that he completely took advantage of the MAGA movement and lied to everybody and wasn't anti-war, then this should matter to you.
Okay, so let's run that down. Let's say we do that, okay? Let's say that we completely pull out of the Middle East. We have no interest there whatsoever. Saudi Arabia and Israel look to the U.S. and they say, okay, they don't want to be involved anymore. And instead, they decide to become bedfellows with Russia and China. Let's say that we come to our next OPEC, oil price manipulation period or whatever, and you start to see oil prices rise, or it's just rising for the United States, or Russia, China, Middle Eastern countries, everybody that kind of controls access to the Suez is going to start cutting off U.S. shipping. What does the U.S. do at that point?
Okay, so that's different completely.
Whoa.
I'll explain why.
Explain why.
Russia cut ties with Iran.
Well, no, hold on. Russia's ties were cut with Iran temporarily now because of Ukraine.
The Middle East. That's not true.
Wait, but hold on. Right now, I think Russia has other problems going on, which is why they're not helping Iran. But Iran was producing drones for Russia for a while for the Ukraine.
These are countries. They're not friends. Okay, when they say they're not allies anymore, they're not allies. They don't support each other. So if you're saying it goes larger than Iran and Israel, it doesn't. It might not.
So if we were to pull out of the Middle East completely, what do you think happens following that?
Not pull out of the Middle East completely. Cut ties with Israel. Don't support them anymore.
Well, we would have to cut ties, I imagine, with Saudi Arabia and Egypt and everybody else.
We still have our bases there, so it is what it is.
So we would have bases in countries that we say we no longer want to have a positive relationship with, and they would be cool with the bases being there. You don't see another.
That's what's happening in Iraq right now. We have bases in Iraq, correct?
We do, but I mean. We also ostensibly have a decent relationship with this country too, as well, right? We sent them a whole bunch of money. We funded
after the regime change. I don't support the regime change in Iran.
No, but I'm asking you, because we need to follow through with this, okay? Let's say we pull out of the Middle East, or why do you think they would allow us to keep military bases there if we're no longer going to help any of them or be friendly with any of them?
Maybe we don't need them. Maybe we can just
spend the money. Then let's say that we dump all the military bases there. If something comes up where they decide, well, we'd actually want to increase the cost of gas going to the USA, or we want to, we don't want to ship things through the Suez to the US anymore. What do we do at that point?
Where do we get most of our oil from?
Right now, probably between us refining our own in Canada.
Okay, in the Middle East, where do we get the most oil?
the largest exporter individually? I don't know. My guess is Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure.
Saudi Arabia. Is
Okay.
Saudi Arabia involved in Israel conflict whatsoever?
Yes.
Are they? How?
The Saudi Arabia is incredible. There's a reason why the most thing that came out of Saudi Arabia recently was a meanly worded letter saying, "We hope that you guys are careful when you bomb Iran's nuclear enrichment plants." Iran attacked Saudi Arabia.
The Abraham Accords created normalization in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest countries.
They didn't. So Saudi Arabia didn't technically join the Abraham Accords, although there might have been a path there. But the Abraham Accords is about peace with Israel, not the United States, right?
No, that's between Israel and the surrounding Middle East. The Abraham Accords
And some other countries, yeah.
including Saudi Arabia.
Well, Saudi Arabia wasn't a formal signatory to the Abraham Accords, but they were probably on their way to normalization.
Do you think they're any threat to Israel whatsoever, the Saudi Arabia? Do you think they genuinely care? Do you think they even have the power to stop Israel with their military force versus Israel's military force?
No, I don't think so. But I'm not worried
That's
about
what
Israel.
I'm
I'm thinking
saying.
about the United States.
So your hypothetical doesn't mean anything.
No. My hypothetical is what happens if all of these countries decide they don't want to do business with the U.S. anymore?
Destiny. We don't need Israel. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you
No,
this.
what about
We
OPEC?
don't need it. We don't
What
need
about
it.
OPEC?
We don't need to go to war, guys. We don't need Israel. We don't need to have a regime change in Iran. Israel has a nuclear bomb. Iran can too. It's okay.
Okay, so if that whole region was unfriendly or hostile towards the United States, you think that life would go on as normal and that wouldn't impact anything whatsoever for us?
No, it would 100%. Trade wars and whatnot. But like that's listen. The Earth keeps turning. Am I wrong? Like,
Okay, final words. Okay, go. Give us our final words. Yeah.
how do you feel about that? What you just asked?
What did he say? Something about no? Is Nick Fuentes here? I don't think he is allowed to go to the Bronx. Is he?
No. He's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. Hey, I came here to learn something. I'm very new at politics, and I think I did. Thank you very much, Destiny. I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Good luck. Good luck in the future.
Jesus, some fucking dying in jeans. That guy was wearing a whole ass suit.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Oh yeah, it's hot. Okay.
Yeah.
What's up? How you doing? I just understood what you said. Sorry. Okay. Go for it. What's up?
I hate Donald Trump first and foremost.
You hate Donald Trump?
I hate Donald Trump.
Well, why are you
Yeah.
up here debating me?
I'm gonna fight you a little bit on labeling him a fascist.
You don't like labeling him a fascist.
I don't think I like labeling him a fascist.
Okay.
I think there's a specific political and historical meaning to fascism that I don't think Donald Trump fits. I think that when I think about fascism, I think that it's nationalism as an overriding principle to fuel their authoritarianism. I think that Donald Trump's authoritarianism and ultranationalism, which he does have, I don't think those are working. I don't think one is causing the other. I think they're working tangentially together.
So you don't think the guy whose slogan is "Make America Great Again" that he's using to unilaterally use the executive for whatever policy he wants isn't using nationalism to be an authoritarian?
No, I think the intentionality is important when we talk about nationalism or fascism. I think it's I don't think that he cares about like the nation state. I don't really even think he cares about America that much. I think
not to short circuit this argument, but depending on how deep in the weeds we get, I would actually probably agree with you.
Yeah.
I think he's incredibly narcissistic. Just from the brief summary or reading I had of other fascist figures, like I don't think Hitler was just out for himself. I think he did have some vision of like whatever.
like post World War
I don't think
One
Donald
with the
Trump.
Treaty of Versailles, right? Like he wanted to.
Sure, yeah, I don't think Donald Trump has a vision for America at all that isn't just like self-service. To him.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where I'm getting at is that his underlying motivation and overriding principle for anything is ultimately his own ego.
Sure, I don't think I would necessarily disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it ascribes more political or intelligent or ideological malice than Donald Trump is actually capable of when we call him a fascist.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I don't think I usually call him a fascist. If I do, I'm just trying to trigger conservatives. Usually I say he's like He's very selfish. I feel like the last conversation I had on this is I said I don't think he's a fascist because I don't think he's smart enough to be a fascist. I don't even think he has the brain for that kind of stuff.
True, he's just politically illiterate.
Like we literally have a $5 million immigration card with a golden picture of Trump on it right now, which is absolutely insane to me.
Yeah.
I think that I also think it's important. I say this a lot that when you're analyzing his actions, I literally do just look at it as like a YouTuber with a lot of subscribers. I guess 78 million,
like a political influencer, right?
Yeah, and I think that explains a lot of his actions.
Yeah, he's
somebody sent me his last truth, and I think he had like Nobel Prize listed 6 times in it. Like he really thinks he's going to get one for bombing Iran or whatever. Yeah, I don't disagree with that analysis.
Okay, well that was easy. Shit, I guess. What do you think about shit? That's kind of all I had.
Like the least, like,
Donald Trump
definition.
isn't easy to defend.
It's not a hill I die on.
Donald Trump is not easy to defend. Okay, you gotta.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel bad sometimes for coming into a lot of these debates. I feel like it's. Yeah, I just saw even Kyla. People made fun of her for not being prepared to go on Tim Pool or whatever, and then now you see that clip making the rounds of Tim talking about how they wouldn't go to war with Iran or it'd be immoral or unethical, and Trump is just 180'd on it completely, and everybody gets new marching orders, and now it's actually super okay and great that Trump bombed Iran. And yeah, I truly do think Trump could do anything, and at least the media figures would defend him. But I do think at some point it's going to hurt the base. Like I think it already has.
Yeah.
I feel like midterms are going to be really good for us, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
I'll see you on the campaign trail, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
The country's still here.
Yeah. We'll see in a year and a half or year, or so. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure to meet you in person.
Pleasure to meet you too. What's your name?
Isaac.
Isaac. Okay. Speaking to the mic, directly in the mic.
Yep. It's very nice to be in the Hassan's communist chic venue, like the collapsing milk buckets, as well as the Warriors. Warriors come out to play. So
are these New York references I don't get?
You never seen the Warriors? Walter Hill, classic New York movie.
No.
They all know it.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I heard the one Jay-Z song, though.
All right. So here's my, I agree with you in most of your political positions, but I have one big disagreement, and that's how you've been kind of treating Asmongold. Now,
Uh-oh.
Hear me out. I agree that Asmongold is a dumbass. He is the dumbass roach king, and you are right to ream him apart, but he's a golden opportunity. He has fallen in his way to becoming the #1 political streamer, and it's not to tear him down because he's susceptible to you. You could talk to him. You could convince him because Asmongold, he doesn't give good political takes, but he has this white trash wisdom, these little nuggets that people appreciate where he there's this one video where some guy says I wish I could be like you. I wish I could live a life of a degenerate and play video games all day. And he says, no, my life is awful. You just wish you can make more time for yourself, enjoy your things, and then go live a real life. Don't be me. I live a miserable life. And the fact that he doesn't move in a mansion, he lives the life that most white American men wish they could have today, which is sitting around in a room, getting a constant dopamine fix of video games, movies, and videos, and getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars so they can just always have a taco if they go out to fast food. That is the new American dream. It's not to be Brad Pitt. It's to be Asmongold and make millions of dollars sitting around with a constant fix of dopamine. That means that if you can fill that dopamine, that you could shift his opinion. You could talk to him. You don't think you could connect? You don't think that you could meet with him on Kick? Is that not impossible?
I'm not 100% disagreeing with you. I think one big issue you're having right now is the only other big political commentator on Twitch was Hassan, and so Asmongold seems good in comparison, but the bar is in hell right now, okay? So I agree that Asmongold doesn't say every single thing that would be the most insane stuff to say. I do agree with that. I would never say that Asmongold is a full-on Nazi. He's not far crazy, right? He's just very much bought into kind of the MAGA camp, and he stakes out very micro disagreements at points. The issue that I have, I guess, when it comes to engaging with somebody like him is that we had a lot of opportunities in the past to talk that he didn't seem interested in. And if I infinitely extend this charity to interpreting the things that he says, I don't want any of the whatever credibility I have online when it comes to political information. I don't want to extend that and use that to make excuses.
Okay. I gotta dig in a little bit there, because like that's another issue I have. Like I love your content, but like sometimes you go to edgy, bro, and the problem is when you go edgy, bro, it's funny. I enjoy it. I love edgy stuff, but that means like all the hours you put into Israel, Palestine, all the hours of research, all the shit you do that Hassan doesn't. It doesn't matter. They can just throw it away. They can dismiss you easily. That's like kind of an issue. You run into. I've seen throughout your content.
And so some people don't like the fact that I'm edgy. Who is a non-edgy center-left content creator that anybody has even heard of in the streaming space?
Hey, the Midas touch is rising. The Pondering Politics. They are milquetoast and lame.
Yeah, so Midas touch is very, very, very new. But in the streaming space, like, there's a certain type of demeanor and attitude. Like, as much as people might not like it, me, Vosh, Hassan, Asmongold have a very similar-ish, like, debate bro, edgy demeanor, right? Vosh is perma banned from Twitch for talking about nuking Israel. Hassan has made comments about brave Mujahideen soldiers fucking the eye socket of a sitting U.S., I think, congressman or senator. I don't remember, Crenshaw. And then, you've got Asmongold, who's made unlimited edgy comments recently about, wearing a Pokemon trainer's outfit to go and watch illegal immigrants getting deported. The only difference when people say that they don't like you because they're edgy, what they're really saying is, I don't think you have all of the political majority of power right now, so I don't like what you're saying that's edgy. Because when you have all the political power, you can say whatever edgy thing you want. So I don't know if me making edgy statements or not helps somebody dismiss me. I know that they might point to that, but for Asmongold, there were times before I had made any crazy edgy statements. There was the perfect opportunity for us to chat. I think he was banned from Twitch for, it was either 1 day or 3 days or a week or something. And he completely went radio silent despite kind of being in contact with DMs. I think that's intentional. I think the avoidance of the conversation is intentional. And I think sometimes people get a little bit, I don't want to say gaslit. No, I will. I'll channel my white queens. People get a little bit gaslit, okay, by some content creators who will be avoiding. And then as soon as they see one thing, they're like, oh, that's why I didn't talk to that person. It's like, no, motherfucker. Like, Asmongold is a very edgy content creator. Like, he has been very edgy. I'm very edgy. He's known that. He's known I've been edgy, and he said tons of very nice things about me, right? Throughout the entirety of my online career. We had conversations 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. He said when I got banned on Twitch, he hopes the best for me on YouTube. He thinks it'll be good for my content. The only issue now is that he doesn't like that I'm edgy in regards to his current political disposition that is getting him 50,000 concurrent viewers and, 6 to 7 figure payouts a month, which doesn't seem to me to be like an issue with the edginess. It seems to be more an issue of audience capture, is how I feel.
Well, all right. So maybe he's a little bit audience captured, but like by the same token, you've got this like DGG community. You've got this incredible army. You're like one of the most effective political streamers in terms of like getting people into seats, canvassing. Hassan almost never does that. Like you can't like send some spies to like pressure him and get into that Asmongold chat and Discord, say like, oh, I just talked to Destiny. Destiny thinks this is blah blah blah. You don't think there's any influence you could do to like kind of like give him a carrot to come to you?
I mean, I think I give carrots to people all the time. When somebody says something I agree with, I defend it, even if I hate him. I mean, I'm the only person on the internet that defended Hassan when he said that streaming was a more soul-crushing job than working fast food, just because I knew what he was trying to say. He's just incredibly inarticulate, which has been evidenced in the past multiple times. And when Asmongold makes a good point, like I'll say, yeah, I think Asmongold has a point here. I don't disagree with him here, even if my audience is primed to disagree with either of these people. But at this point, I think that's the furthest extent I'm willing to go with. It just seems like constantly building bridges where I'm the only one laying any of the bricks. And then when I do one thing that they don't like, all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I can't do it. Like at the end, what's the goal here, I guess? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah, you can have the last word on it. Yeah,
had a pleasure. It was an absolute blast.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Cal. Nice to meet y'all. Live in Hoboken right now. So I actually agree with majority of what you say, but I'm actually up here today because I need some help in a way. So to give more context, I have a lot of friends of mine that are both right-leaning and left-leaning. But for example, like this week, I'm starting to talk to a lot of my more left-leaning friends about Israel-Palestine. So I guess what I need help with essentially is like, how can I pull people out of that? Like there's a genocide going on in Palestine kind of talking points, So for example, I had a discussion with a friend this week who, one of my best friends, talked to him like my whole life. But, I'm trying to like explain my perspective. And one of the things like, I just need help like filling in the gaps how to discuss with him is, he talked about the cabinet members, for example, with Israel, about how they have discussed a lot about wanting to annex the Gaza Strip. So I guess I just wanted to run through questions of where I was having trouble responding to these questions. You know what I mean? So yeah, how would you respond to what he was talking about?
I mean, the two most frequently cited crazy cabinet members are Smoltrich and Ben-Gvir are the two most kind of like out there guys. I mean, those people are crazy. I wouldn't defend anything that they say. I do think it's a little bit disappointing or frustrating sometimes that people are willing to take a single quote or some quotes from Israeli leaders and say, this is what they're definitely going to be doing in the future. And then when you look at, we'll say like Iran or Hezbollah, and they've got like slogans of like death to the Jews, death to America, whatever. And like, well, they just say that shit. They don't actually mean it. Like, it's strange, the double standard that's presented there. I think that Israel has a domestic and a foreign policy that might be guided, I think, by a far-right coalition at the moment. But, I mean, they have constrictions within their own country for what their population will accept. There are constrictions in the countries around them for what they'll accept. And then the United States, before Trump was there, will only accept so much as well. So there are like guidelines, there are boundaries that they have to be within. They can't just do whatever they want. Because if that was the case, they would have kicked all the Gazans out, and they would have kicked everybody out of the West Bank, all the Palestinians out years ago, decades ago, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with my friend as well. And there's two things I go off that, like going back to the quotes, like he sent me a quote and it was, I forget who it was by. Like I said, I don't know like every name, but it was talking about Hamas and how, we're going to take out all those dogs, referring to Hamas. And he sent me this quote and he was trying to paint it as like, this is proof that there's a genocide because the cabinet members are saying we're going to take out all these dogs. But I'm like, shouldn't this clearly like be about like Hamas? Like, I feel like it's pretty clear, but
maybe I don't like. It's just, especially after like going through historical stuff, like just living in quotes is so weird.
Yeah,
like imagine. Imagine going through this time period 10 years from now and somebody reading your quotes. Like, remember when the U.S. was about to invade Greenland and Canada and Mexico and the Panama Canal because of like what Donald Trump said? Like, Donald Trump's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would take a single statement by him or try to like, bring it back to U.S. politics. Like, if Tulsi Gabbard said something, is that indicative of what future U.S. policy is going to be? Or if Marco Rubio said something, or if Hegg said something, it's not really. Like, the government is a huge, complicated thing. We wouldn't take their statements in and of themselves as evidence of what's going to happen. We would take them in the greater context of what all the actions are. But again, it's very easy to say, like, those statements are important statements, assuming they're as bad as you say they are. But it doesn't mean that Israel is necessarily committed to that line of action. And another thing that's really, I think, worrying is that if you commit yourself to quotes like that, and then you say that this is going to happen for sure, that's their goal, you foreclose any type of reasonable negotiation or reasonable middle ground between any side, because you've basically said it's completely hopeless.
Yeah, for sure. And then my final thought was to go off that, talking about the genocide. I brought up what many points that you've said. If they really wanted to like take them all out, like why haven't they by now? So I used an example of Vietnam, like, will we consider that a genocide? And at first he was like, oh no, but then he completely flipped and was like, Yeah,
I think
there's a genocide.
The thing that you have to do is like, you have to decide if you want to protect certain words or not. Like, genocide it means a particular thing that you are like explicitly trying to remove a certain type of people, from the planet. Like, it's got a very specific thing. And I feel like the question is always like, can you tell me what the difference is between a really, really, really crazy war where there might be a lot of civilian deaths versus a genocide? Like, is there a difference between those two things? And I guess, like you said, your friend switched on the Vietnam thing. My guess is at some point people would end up just saying, no, I don't think there's a difference. Like, was it genocidal when we nuked Japan? My intuition is that a lot of the pro-Pali people that say that it's a genocide right now, like over half of them would probably say, yeah, those were genocidal actions. But then it's like, at that point, like, do you want to have the argument? I don't argue this that much anyway. I think it's kind of a waste of time, but yeah.
I say one more thing. Yeah. To bring it back to that, then he started to talk more about Iraq and Afghanistan, which I'm not too well thought of about, but I tend to think I know a decent amount about Vietnam. So to what you said, I just feel like it's kind of hard right now because people just see people dying, like children, for example, and I think it's powerful optically. But like you said, it's like we need definitions to mean something. So I appreciate the advice though, because it's hard to get people out of that.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Realist news source out there, InfoWars. Realist news source out there, InfoWars, and Nick Fuentes.
Okay. Wait, how old are you? Just curious.
I'm 18. I'm turning 19.
All right. Okay. Try to speak right into the mic. All right. What do you got?
Yeah, I voted. This was my first election. All right. Yeah, this was my first election I ever voted in. Not gonna lie, I feel like I should have a big I fell for it ribbon. But although I still want Donald Trump to put America first, and why I came to debate you is because I believe that the tariffs do put America first.
Okay, so I guess the first question would be, if you believe the tariffs put America first, what do you think is the goal of the tariff plan?
I think the goal is to incentivize manufacturing to come back.
Okay, if the goal is to incentivize manufacturing to come back, why is Trump trying to cut deals with other countries?
Because he wants to get more investment for the country. Basically, under Biden, no one was investing. But as you saw when Donald Trump first came in his first week, he got investment from the Middle East.
Sure, so the investment has nothing to do with deals with other countries, though. What I'm asking is, why is Donald Trump, he says he uses tariffs as a negotiating tactic, and I think the negotiation is to negotiate a trade deal, but why would we negotiate trade deals if we're just trying to manufacture everything at home?
Well, it depends on what countries. Like, for example, you saw with Mexico, their reason was because of the cartels. But you saw with El Salvador and that part of Central America, it was because of immigration. So it really depends on what country.
For all of them. What I'm saying is, if you want to manufacture more stuff at home...
Yeah, he wants manufacturing to come back.
But then why would you be using tariffs to make trade deals? Wouldn't you just not want any trade deals? Wouldn't you just want to make it all here?
Well, he's sure to have a protectionist policy.
Yeah, but then if you're having a protectionist policy, what is the incentive for other countries to negotiate with you?
It's so they could roll back whatever they're doing that's wrong. Like, for example, Mexico, their cartels. The reason why we had a trade deal with Mexico and why we rolled back the tariffs, which I disagree with, was because Mexico agreed that they would put more restraint on the cartels and on the border.
But Trump negotiated the big trade deal that we had with Mexico, and none of that happened, no? Like the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement.
Huh?
His renegotiation of NAFTA was the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement.
Yeah.
So was that all just worthless, or was that really bad? Because he's blown that up now, right?
Yeah. Honestly, Donald Trump has not been living to what he promised during his campaign, which is why I began with this I fell for it ribbon. But the whole point of MAGA is to put America first. And
sure, but I'm just fixating on the tariffs, right? So it seems like his first trade deal with Canada and Mexico, which was an actual trade deal, is blown up now. And then we are how many days into
what do you mean it's blown up? Like, how's it blown up?
Well, he started arbitrarily tariffing them in contrary to what...
Well, it wasn't arbitrary.
Well, it wasn't agreed upon in the trade deal. So, for instance, one of the things we bullied Canada a lot for was their tariffs on products once they reached a certain threshold of import in Canada. That was part of Trump's...
You do realize that the reason why we had that with Canada is because Canada has a big fentanyl problem coming into America, right?
Well, no, I'm just talking about the trade deal. Trump pointed out Canadian tariffs that he didn't like for U.S. products. That was part of Trump's trade deal.
Yeah.
So if Trump isn't even happy with his own trade deals, and that was with just two countries, how is he supposed to negotiate 90 new trade deals? I think he's got, a couple of weeks left, and we've got 0?
What do you mean he's got a couple of weeks left? What do you mean?
Didn't he say, am I making this? Did he say 90 deals in 90 days, or am I making that
up?
Yeah.
But honestly speaking, they always roll that back, don't they? Like, they always say 90 days, and then it's the next 90 days.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we've got tariffs that are kicking everybody's ass, and, nobody likes us anymore. The whole world thinks we're...
Well, it doesn't matter if anyone likes us. The whole point is to put America
I thought the whole
first.
point was America is supposed to be respected. Doesn't it matter if people like us if they want to do business with us?
But it's put America first. That's why that's what the whole tariffs were. And, basically, when I said manufacturing to come back, he basically wants jobs to come back because a lot of jobs have been offshored. And what that incentivizes is so companies don't pay the tariffs, is so companies can come back to America, and so they can employ more Americans.
Okay, let's assume, I'm assuming a lot, but let's assume that fosters...
Well, that's the theory.
Well, no, it's not even correct in theory, because, for instance, if we maintain tariffs with everybody, okay, as a way to bring manufacturing back, why would you want to manufacture in America at all?
Well, so that you can give more jobs to Americans.
No. Why would other people want to manufacture in America?
So they don't have to pay the high tariffs. That's why they didn't want. That's why the tariffs were so high.
But the tariffs are only with America. Why wouldn't they just manufacture in Europe?
What do you mean
or
they're with America?
If America tariffs everybody and they all tariff us back, that means if you come to manufacture in America, you're now subjected to everybody else's tariffs on America.
No, that was a point of the reciprocal tariffs.
What?
That was a point of the reciprocal tariffs.
Sure. Well, one, the tariffs weren't reciprocal, and two, it doesn't change.
What do you mean they weren't reciprocal? Yes, they were.
No, the number was made up based on our trade deficit, which has nothing to do with it.
Are you talking about the equation that they used to?
Sure, we can if you want. Yeah. That has nothing to do with tariffs. It just had to do with the trade deficit.
Well, yeah, but also the whole thing. Another point about the tariffs I didn't break up was a trade deficit. America is currently under a $1.6 trillion trade deficit.
Sure. Without getting into, well, hold on. Without getting into that, here, this is just my basic question. Like, I don't understand why Trump keeps saying people want access to the U.S. market because it's an amazing market. That's true, but a big reason why that's true is because the U.S. market has access to all of the other markets internationally.
Well, no, I think the U.S. market has been so interconnected to the point where we rely on the rest of the world. So the point of these tariffs is so that things can be made in America again, is so we don't have to rely on the rest of the world for product.
Which country has a tariff regime like this that you're jealous of? Like, what country around the world are you like?
What do you mean? I don't think that matters.
Because the United States is like, I don't know if there are any Europeans here, but we're like kicking everybody's ass for decades when it comes to like ever since the end of World War II. The United States has been the leader of the free world in so many different ways, whether we're talking technology, military, diplomacy, whether we're talking economy, we still have the biggest
Really?
GDP. Like,
are you saying that America was number one in everything?
what?
Are you saying America was number one in everything? Because a lot of leftists say that. I mean, America ranks like almost last in like healthcare and stuff like that.
This is a fundamentally different type of question. I'm just saying that the United States was on the top of all of these charts. I'm curious, like, what country is Trump looking at that he's like, we need to be more like that country with our trade policy?
I don't think it. Well, for one, probably China, most likely, because we're under. That's why.
Do you think that the average American or the average Chinese person has a better life?
What's the point in that question?
Well, why would we be envious of China's trade policy if the United States is...
Well, because we rely on China for all our product, and we rely on not only China but the rest of the world for all our stuff. Though that's why
not for all of our stuff.
Most of our stuff, we rely on the rest of the world
for like base level stuff, right? But we make it into...
Yeah, but don't you think that if you were to bring that stuff back here to America, it would be cheaper in the long term?
Would you rather mine stuff out of the ground, or would you rather have the car manufacturing plants that are putting together Teslas at the final stage of production?
Well, don't you think that if we started mining stuff off the ground, that would make jobs for Americans?
No. I think it would make mining jobs for Americans.
What do you mean mining jobs for Americans? Do you want to import more Indians, or do you want to get like what?
Wait, what?
Do you want to have like more Indians here, or like...
Do you think that it would be an improvement in our current situation if we went back to mining resources out of the ground with pickaxes?
I think that would make, I think that would make more jobs for Americans though, wouldn't it?
I mean, you could make more jobs with Americans if you gave people scissors and told them to cut lawns. I mean, that doesn't mean they're good jobs.
That's such a bad heuristic, bro.
A bad heuristic. If you're watching a movie or playing a video game, mining coal with a pickaxe is like level 1. That's like the first thing you do. There is no video game where you watch it and you got a character with a pickaxe and coal, and your mom or dad or your girlfriend comes and is like, wow, you must be really far in your game. You're like, no, I'm in the shitty level 1 development phase. I'm trying to get out of here as soon as possible.
You're using Minecraft to discuss about policy?
I'm being what?
You're using Minecraft to discuss about policy and using it as an example?
Hold on, it's the echoes because you're covering it. I'm being what for policy?
I said, are you really using Minecraft to like...
I'm using literally anything in the world when you talk about the stages of developments of economies. It's not like we were doing AI in the 1800s and then Henry Ford walked us back to making cars, and then now in the 2000s we're celebrating to go into the coal mines again, right? Our economy is developed. It's better to be a service-based and a final stage of manufacturing economy than it is to be a natural resource extraction economy.
But if you were to be a natural resource, wouldn't that make more jobs overall?
No, we don't have enough. We don't have an unlimited amount of people to work jobs.
We do have enough. What do you mean? We have 300 million people in America, and also the unemployment rate is so high.
The unemployment rate is like 4.5%, where the unemployment rate is low. Yes. We do not have high unemployment in the United States.
Unemployment rate after college. Unemployment rate after college.
Why would I look at a single, like 2 or 3 years in a person's life? I would look at the overall unemployment rate of the economy, and I would see how the economy is doing. Also, why would I want to send kids who just graduated college to go work in the coal field?
I'm not saying to send them back to the coal mines. What I'm saying is that if you were to have coal mines in America, that would overall make more jobs in America.
Yeah, but we don't want any job. We want the most productive jobs, right?
Okay, yeah, sure. And like what? Like so you want America to rely on the rest of the world for all their stuff?
The world relies on us for final stage of manufacturing.
What do you mean? Our largest trading partners are Canada, Mexico, and China.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But here, question.
We rely on the rest of the world for stuff. I don't know why everyone's saying okay.
What is Donald Trump's number one complaint about China?
That it's a lot.
That they steal our intellectual property. That's what we make, right? Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump's biggest complaint about China is that we do so much of what you guys seem to call useless work here, right? The creating of patents, of intellectual property, of software, all this technology that like half the old Trump coalition, I say old because now that Elon's out, I don't know those people are there anymore. All the crypto guys and all the AI guys are like, this is the future, right? We're not doing... Like when they say Bitcoin mining, that's not an actual mine. You know that, I know, right? Like that's not actually what that means, right? Like, it wasn't until Donald Trump that people thought, like, God damn, I'm so jealous of all the people that are over here. I guess like picking agriculture and doing like, I don't know. That's just this thought is just bizarre to me. The numbers and the data don't support it. I hate to appeal to common sense, like doesn't support it, right? Like you've got a dad who's looking at his children and they're looking across the street and there are these horrible Mexicans roofing and he's like, I can't believe I got to send you to college, Jake. Like back in my day, you would have been up on those roofs in the heat. It would have been way better. Like it's just such a bizarre world to me.
Doug, this is
that we're trashing things like AI and it's like, don't you want to be the guys in China jumping off the factories into the nets? Like, doesn't that look like fun? Like,
okay, now you're just using like pointless, like logical fallacies against me. Like, what are you talking about?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
You're just using like pointless, like you're not even arguments. Like you're just saying something about like a Mexican and Jake. Like,
no, if you want to use actual arguments, the actual arguments,
like actually, like
the actual arguments is that the United States is outperforming every single other economy in the world. The actual arguments, if you're looking at export economies, you're looking at economies like Iran and North Korea.
Well, what is wrong with
United
putting
Kingdom.
America first?
What about?
Why don't you want to put America first?
America first doesn't mean that you are screwing every other country in the world. You're hurting yourself. That's not an America first policy.
We should have a protectionist, isolationist trade policy.
No, that's not. Okay, here's a question. You want to be an entrepreneur when you grow up?
I want to be a politician when I grow up.
Okay, you want to be a politician. Okay.
We have to change it from within, everyone.
If you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you were being a small businessman and you were growing in a small business, the biggest leap that you have to make as a small business owner is going from doing everything yourself to hiring other people to do the work for you because you don't have the time.
Obviously, so let's hire Americans.
What?
Let's hire Americans.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that small business owner is not made worse because he's outsourcing jobs that other people can do better so that he can focus on being the business owner, right? Because anybody can work the jobs, but he's the only one that can run the business. So in the United States, there are plenty of... just curious, do you think that there are more countries around the world that could do resource extraction or that could create Facebook or SpaceX?
Well, those are two different things.
They are different things, yes. I agree they're different things.
They're two different sectors.
What?
They're two different sectors.
I agree they're different sectors, but I'm asking you, do you think that right now, if you were to look at the capability, the productive capacity of every country of the world, do you think there are more countries that could create the next cutting edge piece of software technology or that could mine resources out of the ground?
I think there are more countries that can mine resources out of the ground, and here in America, we could most likely make more technologically advanced things. Yeah.
What? Wait, repeat the last thing? Sorry.
Here in America, we can make more AI things or technologically advanced.
Yeah, but
things.
we can't. If we're sending our kids into the minefields instead of into school, we're not going to make the AI things.
But we have so many we have so much liquid gold under us in Texas and Oklahoma. We have so many minerals here in America that we don't have to depend on the rest of the world for all of this. We can do all of this in America, and also with doing that all in America, that also creates jobs for Americans. That puts America first.
You know that historically, no other country has successfully pursued an autarkist regime.
That's what Donald Trump wants to try to pursue.
He's going to be the first one to do it.
Wait. What did you say?
Where you manufacture and make all of your own stuff. Nobody else in the world has done it.
Well, Japan tried doing it. And
Japan, the country that's been in stagflation for 30 or 40 years, and all of their young men are fucking anime dolls instead of making children. That's the country that we're going to model ourselves after?
Yeah, that's fair. All right. I mean, my whole point is going to make an argument.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, my next point, besides the tariffs, is that the deportation.
Hold on, I just want that you're comparing us to Japan, right? In World War II, our ability to do technology, to integrate people from all over the world.
Well, no, I'm in Japan in the 80s.
Sure. But yeah, how do you get there, right? Why did we win World War II? We won that war, right? The United States did. Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with things like technology or things like nuclear weapons. And we only did that. Nuclear weapons are not raw resource extraction or who can mine stuff the fastest. It came from technological breakthroughs and innovations.
Yeah, but through help through America. Don't you think Japan had help from America after World War II? I mean, we literally reconstructed their constitution.
Yeah, but that's been beneficial to us, right?
Yeah, but America did it. They couldn't do it without America.
Yeah, but would America have made Dragon Ball Z? Or I'm sorry, what would it be
What?
to you? Naruto?
I'm not
I don't
into
know
anime. Bro,
we wouldn't have had that if it would have
I'm
been
not
from
into
Japan. We get
anime.
things from Japan that we couldn't make ourselves, right?
Yeah, but like, what's the whole point of this goy slop? I'm not talking about the goy slop.
What is Dragon Ball Z is Goy Slop? How old am I now?
No. I don't want to call Dragon Ball Z goy slop, but I mean that in the sense of like entertainment. I don't care about that. What I care about is having Americans have like a proper living.
Americans have what?
I want Americans to have a proper living in America.
Yeah, but everything will get more expensive if you make it here. No? So when the living
for
standards...
the short term, in the long term, it'll get cheaper.
How would it get cheaper in the long term?
Because right now we depend on the rest of the world for the rest of our stuff. So right now...
because it's cheaper.
Oh.
You think that we could make you think that Americans could make every single thing from the supply chain from bottom to top better than every single other country on the planet?
I think if we start really trying to, yeah, we really can, and we can put America first.
Okay, I mean, no one else in history has done that. No one else in the world does
that. That's
what
Donald Trump wanted to do. And also, he told me to bring up my second point. Yeah, it's not going to be quick, but like my whole second point is essentially that to put America first, we also have to stop, doing the immigration that we're doing right now, both illegal and legal.
So you want to bring, just to be clear, you want to bring all of the jobs back here. You want to do all the resource extraction
you want to do
all the manufacturing, and then you want to deport 20 million people at the same time?
And also stop the visas, because the visas also exploit Americans economically.
I mean, like, I'm just curious. Wait, well, okay, yeah. All right, thanks for chatting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we have to.
So as I just said, I'm a huge fan, and I didn't buy a debate ticket because it would have been a waste of everyone's time. I agree with 98% of what Destiny has to say.
Here comes the 2%, okay?
I feel like you'd convince me. Okay, so I actually would like to invite you, with the producers' approval and blessing, to invite either debater number 2 or number 3 back on the stage based on these 2 questions, and you can choose perhaps which one you prefer.
What was the first part?
Debater number 2 was the one advocating for South Africa.
Okay.
And the question I have is, at any point during Trump's first term, or perhaps even on the campaign trail, did you hear about and or care about South African farmers? That's question number 1.
Do you want me to answer that one now or no?
No, I want you to invite him back up.
Okay.
If that's the one you choose to debate.
Okay.
Debater number 3 said that he was a Trump supporter and or possibly still is, but up until a week ago, in light of yesterday's attack, feels differently. And the question I have is, why did it take that particular breach or break of promise for you to reconsider your allegiance to Trump when he has broken so many other campaign promises? So whether you're considering ending the war in Ukraine on day 1, driving down inflation costs or the price of goods, even the weaponization of government or the DOG specifically.
Debater 3 was the one with the sunglasses?
You mean the Elon sunglasses?
Oh, you're here?
And the Jesus hat?
Can I take a stab at the answer to that for you? The question is like, why was the attack on Iran especially harmful to your support for Trump versus everything else? Is the answer have something to do with the fact that Donald Trump might not be a perfect candidate, but he can further a lot of the interests that you want in the U.S., but doing the strikes in Iran proves that he's, what do you call it? He's an Israeli puppet more so than you wanted to be? Oh, no? Oh, okay.
I hope you'll take more of the cult approach, but I appreciate you and invite you to choose your poison.
Okay. Well, don't make me choose one. I feel bad. I don't want to.
Pressure's on.
What?
Pressure's on.
Yeah. I already answered one, but now I bring up the 3 guy.
Thank
I'm sorry.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Vince Van Gogh. She asked why this particular conflict made me change my mind on Trump's foreign policy in the Middle East, or just in Trump in general, why I support him. We talked about tariffs, trade wars, finances, economy. We haven't really touched on cultural issues yet, but that is a factor. And she asked, why do I care the most about this particular conflict? And I would say the sole reason for that is because people are dying. At the end of the day, we either get to live or we don't. Someone laughed, but it's not funny. It's not funny. I mentioned before, 48,000 Palestinians died. We need to stop all wars. I'm pro peace. I'm pro peace. Because it was the most recent conflict. We're talking about I'm talking about current events here. Not that it's not.
Okay, wait. So this is the last one. Okay, I'm gonna be a little meaner now. Okay, wait. Here's the question. Okay, this is what I don't understand. All right.
Sure.
So in the first Trump term, okay, we saw an increase and then an obfuscation of the data around the drone strikes in Yemen under Trump. He was fully on board with Saudi Arabia and continuing to bomb the Houthis in Yemen. We saw an actual attack on a Syrian airport in response to reported chemical weapons attacks from Assad. We saw a complete dereliction of our responsibility and duties to the Kurdish people that were helping us in Syria. We abandoned them to be laid waste to by Turkey. We saw zero progress whatsoever in the Ukrainian-Russian war. We saw a total simp fest for Israel and acknowledging the moving of the embassy, in acknowledging that we were going to do the Abraham Accords while totally neglecting the Palestinian issue. The whole border riots, the Great March of Return, all happened under Donald Trump there. When you look at Donald Trump's foreign policy in his first term, I don't know what you could have ever seen there that would have made you think, wow, this is the president of peace.
Exactly. That's why when I researched all this at 12 o'clock in the morning off half a Red Bull, I realized that him pulling out of the Iranian deal was one of the factors that led us here. Donald Trump is not anti-war. He led off that campaign claiming he was anti-war. He's not. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. But at the same time, can you name some points that the Biden administration has done to prevent deaths in Ukraine and in the Middle East?
So for Ukraine and the Middle East, I mean, they announced ahead of time that the invasion was going to happen. Biden did his best to try to rope together as many people as I mean, it's better than the Trump admin that didn't even announce to Democrats working in the intelligence committee that we were going to go and bomb Iran. I mean,
48,000, Destiny, 48,000.
No, 48,000 what?
Palestinians died under Biden.
Yeah, do you know what the last time I heard Trump talk about them was? It was when he had an AI image of a new city in Gaza being made.
Yeah, he did say that. And I'm not going to argue with that point, too.
You understand also that, like, not to mix up, like, Jews in America are not the same as Jews in Israel. Like, in America,
absolutely,
they might have their opinions and they might all be progressive, whatever. When you go to Israel, there's a reason why everybody there wanted Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Like, that wasn't like a real debate between the Israeli people.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So everybody knew that Trump was going to be a massive
supporter of Israel,
if we say, right? He was going to be a massive Israeli simp the entire time. So I just don't, when you look at everything that happened in his first term, I wouldn't even say the writing was on the wall. Like, the actions were in the air. Like, it was a total support for Israel and everything they wanted to do.
No, absolutely. And I honestly agree with you. And that's what I discovered when I researched this three days ago off half a Red Bull. I didn't know anything about it. And I realized I could not defend Donald Trump's position when it comes to the Middle East.
Okay.
But that being said, under the Democratic Party, it was not any better. If you think it was, if you think the Democratic Party is anti-war, Biden and Kamala are anti-war, Obama was anti-war, you need to do your research.
Sure. So we can look at Biden. Wait. So we can look at. So we can.
We're gonna share.
What?
We're just gonna share. So we're gonna let that go by. So you actually didn't answer my question. And my question had less to do with foreign policy and more to do with why this particular grievance made you say that Trump has broken a campaign promise. It had less to do with foreign policy and more to do with generality. Why do you believe this was the first breach of campaign promise from Donald Trump compared again to tariffs and driving down the price of goods, the weaponization of the DOJ, ending the war in Ukraine, as he just discussed? I'm curious as to how this was the line for you. So if maybe you can explain that.
Absolutely. Again, I said before, I am not a political guy. I'm not a political expert. Sorry to disappoint you guys. That being said, why? She said, goods and finances and economy. We're talking about war. We're talking about people dying. It's different.
Why not on day one? Not only was the Ukraine-Russia war supposed to end, he also bragged about sending Steve Witkoff or whatever to Hamas to make a deal to release all the hostages and everything. That didn't happen either on day 1, 2, 3, whatever day we're at now. Why was it the bombing of Iran where it was finally like, okay, well, that's too much, I guess?
Because he has an unwavering support for Israel and he is pro-war. That's just a fact. And if you think anything would be different under the Kamala administration, that's just not true. We both know that. Look at the history of the Biden administration and the Kamala administration. They are not anti-war.
Well,
Trump
wait. I mean, if you look at the difference,
anti-war, and he did not deliver on that promise.
Well, if you look at the difference, I mean, Biden did follow through on the pullout from Afghanistan, right? So that was one war that was going on under Trump. That ended under Biden.
And Trump made the deal for that. Absolutely.
We ended our support for the drone strikes in Yemen with Saudi Arabia. So that's the second thing that stopped. Biden, regardless of whether you think he did enough, Biden at least tried to restrain Israel in the war in Gaza. I don't think Trump has tried to restrain them ever.
Yes, he did.
Right? Biden tried to support Ukraine as much as he could, and it seems like Trump has left that to the wolves. In what way was Biden more of a warmonger than Trump has been in the first 100 days?
Again, Trump campaigned off of being anti-war. The Democratic Party has never campaigned off of anti-war. I know it's hard to speak in absolutes. However,
but I'm just saying you said that Biden was worse in his 4 years than Trump.
I'm not saying that at all. Trump is dragging us into World War III. Don't get me wrong whatsoever.
But you think Biden would have done the same?
He also has a support for Israel. That's what it comes down to. Do you support billions of dollars per year to a foreign country that does not help us whatsoever, or do you not? That's it. Are you America first or are you not?
Yeah, I feel like Trump did.
Listen, and in case you guys haven't realized, we're in America. It's Republicans or Democrats. That's what you have to choose. You have the choice between one bad choice or another bad choice. Which one are you going to choose? That's all it comes down to. And if you think the Democratic Party is coming to save you, it is not. It's not. It's true. It's true. It's true. I don't support Trump, but at this point, listen.
To be clear, how old are you?
I'm sorry?
How old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
When you say you don't support Trump, did you vote for him the last two elections?
No, I was I think I was underage when he first voted. I met him at 17.
Did you vote for
I didn't vote for him the first term, and yeah, I did vote for him for the second term. Yeah.
If the election was held again today and you had to vote between Kamala and Trump, who would you vote for?
I would vote for Trump again. Sorry. Yep, I would. I absolutely would.
What does it mean when we say we don't support him then?
The Democratic Party is not going to save any of you. They do not care. Vince Van Gogh.
No, I'm glad you guys showed up. It's been fun. I'm glad you showed up despite the venue change and despite the unbearable fucking heat in here. So, congratulations. It's been fun, and yeah.